You're listening to the Weekly Wrap-Up on Sprott Money News.
Well, happy Friday from Sprott Money News and SprottMoney.com. It is Friday, February the 7th, 2020, and it's time for your weekly wrap-up. I'm your host, Craig Hemke, and joining us is Eric Sprott himself. Eric, good morning.
Good morning, Craig. Unfortunately for all of us investors, there's some tough news out there on coronavirus. Which I think I spend more time looking at that than I do gold stocks these days, which might tell our listeners something. And I certainly suggest that they should be doing that as well. But there's still lots of reasons for optimism in our particular industry, but that's about the only one. So let's take it from there.
Let's do. And before we get started, I do want to remind everybody, one of the best things that Sprott Money does all year is our signature sale. That takes place every February. We talked about this last week, so we're going to talk about it again this week. It is now week 2 of the signature sale, which means there's a whole new list of products on sale for you at SprottMoney.com, including one of Eric's favorites, the Sprott Gold Wafer. Remember those from last year, Eric? They are wafer thin. They are offered at a special price, but you got to go to SprottMoney.com to check it out. You'll find that and everything else on the deals page at SprottMoney.com. But of course, hey, heck with that. You can just call us 888-861-0775 to learn more about the wafers and everything else that Sprott Money has to offer. All right, my friend, there is a lot of news, but we're going to focus on the big picture this week. And the biggest part of that picture is this growing epidemic becoming a pandemic and the global economic impact of said virus. What's on your mind, my friend?
Well, first of all, just to remind the listeners, I think the first time you and I mentioned this was two weeks ago. At that time, there were 200 cases in the world. There's 31,000 now. That's one hell of a big increase in 2 weeks' time. And I've seen artificial intelligence numbers that suggested that by March 15th, we could have 2.5 billion cases and 53 million deaths. It's just an extension of numbers. It's not my prediction. It just takes the rate of growth and moves it forward. And when you're compounding at 20 and 30 and 40% a day, believe me, we all know the numbers grow fast. And that looks like what's happening. So that's our marker here that we have right now. And of course, today, I think there was something like 3,100 new cases and something like 70 deaths. And of course, the most disappointing one was there's a whistleblower doctor who sent out on the social media that we seem to have a strange bug here, coronavirus, whatever. And of course, the Chinese police came in and told him to shut up and sign here, don't ever talk about this again. Well, that poor doctor contracted a disease, and he died yesterday.
Yeah.
He tried to help, but the system was not ready to have people hear the real news. So I want to talk about some of the other things that are happening. Well, first of all, let me talk about some of the stupidity that's going on. So, for example, I read an article about Indonesia and say, well, we brought back 263 people from Wuhan. They're all in isolation. We're not going to test them because they're not showing the signs yet. But we'll test them if they show signs. And, of course, we all know that it can take 14 days for it to manifest the signs, but the guy can have it for 14 days. What are these guys reading? These are people in the health business. I'm a chartered accountant reading this stuff, and I know better than that. They should be tested. It's almost like testing the 273 people on the boat in Yokohama. And the first time they got 10, the next day they got 10, yesterday they got 41. Don't put that into your AI and extend how quickly we're going to be there, i.e. a 300% gain in cases in one day. And I would like everyone to realize if you're on a cruise line, that the last guy off in Yokohama is going to get off 14 days after the last guy's been cleared. And who knows what year that'll be. We'll see. So don't go on a cruise ship.
Yeah.
The other thing, the interesting day, I'm just giving data points here so people kind of understand the significance of it. Well, first of all, on the cruise ship, that's all human to human, okay? So anybody who says it's not human to human is bullshit. That's all human to human. In the UK, they had their third case. He came from Singapore and never was in China. So again, human to human. The stress on the supply chains is becoming crazy. There was an article I'm reading about how there could be hundreds of millions of chickens die in China. There's no feed. You know, you got to feed people and animals for them to survive. We have Foxconn saying to the supplier of the Apple parts, don't show up in that plant for a while or until further notice. And I think you're just going to keep getting these things extending out, because as we're already seeing from the cruise ship, and the reason I take the cruise ship, close quarters, rampant expansion. Close quarters, rampant expansion. Okay, don't go to work. That's what the Chinese would be saying to people. In fact, I think I read today that they got 400 million people in lockdown now.
Yep.
Something like that. That's a third of the country. Whoa. Right? And what's the impact going to be for the rest of the world's economies? You know, we buy things. What's going to happen to Amazon with all their Chinese products that won't be delivered? I could go on and on and on of the various companies, things, industries that are going to be decimated here. Now, everybody might say it might be a short time. Sure, it might be a short time. And there might be a lot of not well people at the end of it all, too. And a total restructuring of the economies that have to go on. How about paying your debt when you have no income?
Yep.
You know, you can't sell anything, but your banker wants his debt payment. I mean, there's all kinds of things that people have to think about, and I just think, there's another one. India has 3 cases, but 5,400 under investigation.
Oh, jeez.
3. 5,400 under investigation. Well, you tell me, if you're a thinking person, what percent of those people are going to get sick? Okay?
Oh, my gosh.
And a lot of them are in isolation already, but they're not sick, but they're in isolation. Sure, they're not sick. Anyway, you got to really be on your toes here. I saw a very interesting article which should tell a lot of people what some other people think. Ericsson announces they're not going to a telecommunication conference in Barcelona that's taking place this month. This month, they're not going. Well, why aren't they going? It's a low probability of being infected. The government and health officials tell us. I guess Ericsson doesn't read it that way. Maybe they have their own artificial intelligence. Who knows? Anyway, I just think it's telling that those kind of decisions are being made already, because people who can see ahead, can see what's likely to happen here.
Well, and
that's it on the coronavirus.
Yeah,
unless you have a further question.
Well, I do, actually, because we need to relate this, I think, to, I mean, obviously personal hygiene and health and all that kind of stuff. And you and I both know Chris Martenson, and he's doing a terrific job. I mean, he's a PhD in neurotoxicology and neuropathology, so he knows what he's talking about, and he's doing a great job updating everybody every day. And he talks about just simple precautions like owning N95 face masks, maybe buying yourself some elderberry, syrup or gummies, things like that for your immune system. That's stuff everybody can take. But on a big picture, how this really relates to gold and silver is what you're getting at. And we should probably talk about that, because people need to think, I mean, maybe the stock market's going up, but maybe that's only because banks are front running an inevitable infusion of massive central bank cash to try to keep the global economic system afloat.
Yeah. It's pretty surprising, well, for me, to think about anything positive coming out of this, okay? But the way you put it, because we have this funny situation where the central banks think they can cure everything with money, and of course I guess they can cure the financial markets with money. Yes, they can.
Right.
I mean, they'd end up owning everything, and everyone will become billionaires. But But of course, the one area that I think would benefit the most by that, if that's what they did, would be precious metals, because everyone would realize the fallacy of it all is, GDP's down 5%, stock market hits record high.
Right.
Joe Blow's sales down 25%, stock hits record high.
Right.
I think they'd get it after a while and realize, where's the best place to be? Well, what is the true safe haven here? So hopefully that would help.
And Eric, if you could address too, because you talk about people working in close quarters. We had a couple questions this week from people wondering about Chinese silver production. They're one of the biggest silver suppliers in the world. They demand a lot of silver. Would you want to work in a mine in China?
No, I would not want to work in a mine. And I'm just imagining going down in what they call the skip or the cage, where they jam all the miners in, and they're all, believe me, shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
Till they get to the bottom of the ramp, and no, they'd have to stop all that stuff. I mean, that's worse than being on a cruise ship. So no, it would be very negative. Then again, I mean, who knows? I mean, what about demand? I don't know. It's such a complicated thing to predict because events are changing rapidly.
Right.
Rapidly. Like, for example, I'm supposed to be speaking to TDAC in a month. Do I think that's up in Toronto, Prospectors and Developers Convention? Do you think it's really going to go on? I mean, I'm sort of debating that it would be silly to go there. Of all places to go, that would be the craziest place to go. But so people got to start making those decisions.
Right.
What do you do with your life? What do you do with your business? What do you do with your employees, your customers, your whatever? And there's not any good news out there on that front.
And again, that's a perfect example of the economic slowdown because people don't fly into Toronto for that. People don't stay at hotels for that.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and just think of that.
Don't go to dinner.
They don't
pretty
go to
soon
dinner.
They won't go to sporting. They won't go to sporting events pretty soon.
Exactly.
Speaking of close encounters.
And anybody knows. I mean, if you've been paying attention for the last dozen years, as you said, the central bankers think they can cure anything with cash. So you know what's coming.
Yeah. I like your word cure.
There you go. Actually, I stole it from you. All right, my friend. Anything else on your mind before we get to some of these stocks?
Well, the only thing I keep watching these commitment of traders reports, which aren't giving us many signals other than one. I mean, the gold short interest, I think, is down about 150,000 contracts from 800 to 650. And all of that, with the people covering their shorts have got to be losing money, which is a rarity here. And I found it interesting today that we had the jobs number, which was theoretically good. And for a nanosecond, gold was down. And I'm pretty sure the reason it was only a nanosecond, because everyone knows who cares about today's job reports.
Right.
It's going to mean nothing. Imagine 2 weeks from now, as we're reporting, 100,000 new people get the coronavirus. We're not going to be worried about any jobs reports. So the Dow didn't do much. The gold didn't do much. The dollar didn't do much because we got more important things to think about.
That's right. Like who cares what the December PMI or the fourth quarter GDP was,
Yeah. Well, that'll be predictive.
Yeah. All right. Hey, and we're already about almost 14 minutes into this, so I probably better speed us along a little bit. Though I guess if people are staying home all weekend long, what else they got to do but listen to you and I?
Let's just keep chatting.
I've got another list of names for you. And again, thank you for submitting names and questions for us. I ask Eric about all of these before we get started. If he doesn't have an opinion, then I don't ask him. So if you don't hear the name of your company, like a Rover Metals, it's because Eric didn't have an opinion on it. But we do got opinions on a couple. People want to know first about a joint venture investment you made into something called the Galena Complex. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, there's a Galena mine in Idaho that's being run by America Silver. And some time ago, I'm going to guess about 2 months ago, they made a proposal that I would buy a 25% joint venture in the mine. And because of my sort of belief that silver is so massively undervalued, I went for that. I don't have any reports on how things are going there yet. But as people can appreciate, I buy it because I think silver is going to $50 or $100. Okay, so I'm not worried day to day what's happening. I'm worried, well, not worried. I'm hopeful of what's going to happen 2 and 3 and 4 years from now.
I hear you. I fight that TF Metals report every day because everybody wants the stocks to go up every single day, it seems. And we got to keep our eyes on the big picture. No question about that. Here's a big picture stock that we haven't discussed for a few weeks, and that would be RNC.
Yeah, RNC, nickel, Royal Nickel, Australia. They seem to be doing much better. I think their projection is something like 100,000 ounces this year. Now, I don't really know the market cap right offhand, but I would suspect that it's probably half of what might be typical of a producer like that. And it looks like they have more opportunity there with the acquisition they had, that there might be some interesting places to explore and find and develop quickly. We still haven't come up with the sort of big nugget effect hit in the Beta Hunt mine, but that can happen at any time. I got to believe there's going to be some rather big hits that can be quite instrumental in changing the fundamentals for that company very quickly. So I'm a big owner. I haven't bought it in quite a while, but I like it here.
I think it's a Pilbara company. We talked about often, well, not often, but several times last year. People asked about DeGray because they had some results that they posted yesterday. And so I know a lot of people are wondering your opinion on that, but I know you haven't had a chance to look at it yet. So I'll remind you next week that we'll take a look at DeGray next week. How about Ely?
Ely, yeah. It was just announced that I sold a royalty to them. They're a royalty company. I sold a 1% interest in the Jerritt Canyon royalty to them in return for shares of Ely. And I'm now pushing 30% of that company, 30% ownership. As most listeners would know, they have a 2% royalty on the Fenelon property that Wallbridge is exploring. And of course, I get very excited by the prospectivity of Wallbridge, the Fenelon, I should say, and Wallbridge. And I think that the market has mispriced the value of those royalties in Ely. And here's the way I look at a royalty. So, for example, if Wallbridge had 10 million ounces, they'd produce 500,000 ounces a year. 500,000 ounces a year, 1% gives you 5,000 ounces for your royalty. 2% gives you 10,000 ounces. 10,000 ounces are worth $15 million, which is 20 million Canadian per year of revenue. And that 20 million per year of revenue could trade at sort of a multiple of at least 15. So that's 300 million in market cap. And Ely has a market cap of about 80. And 2 weeks ago it was 60. And that's just for the Fenelon royalty. And they got lots of other royalties, including, of course, the Jerritt Canyon one that will produce another $1 million a year. So I think it's been unrecognized, and I think there might be some opportunity there.
And let's wrap up with Kirkland Lake. We've been talking about this now for a couple of weeks. One couple things they've been fighting is the stock is now down maybe 20-25% from its all-time highs a few months ago. You had the dilution due to Detour. You mentioned a couple weeks ago whether production would slow because of the fires in Australia. Yeah. And then the crazy news this week was that they found there was some mine that was mothballed that they were thinking about reopening, and it was full of some kind of like endangered bat. What else can you add here?
Of that.
Oh yeah,
I wasn't even aware of that.
That's a hilarious story. It was a mine that has been mothballed. I mean, I'm picturing it like planked shut, with like wood planks, and they're going to go back in there, and they found a bunch of endangered bats, and the Australian government said they can't do it.
Oh my God, I wasn't even aware of that. I'm spending so much time looking at the coronavirus. I'm not obviously staying with my investee companies, so I'm not sure which particular mine that is in Australia. But I think if I had to try to explain the weakness, first of all, there's a big short campaign that's always gone on in this stock. And, they get aggressive from time to time. I think that's part of it. I think the other part might be now that the merger's gone ahead, those Detour shareholders who voted against the deal, they might have just said, hey, I'm just going to sell my position here.
Yeah.
So that could have been a lot of stock. I forget what the number was, but it's in the 80s. So let's say 15% didn't vote for it. So that would cause about 10 million shares to come for sale. If they're that disenchanted, they would sell. I listened to a presentation that Tony McCooch gave out in Banff just a few days ago, about a week ago. And he did emphasize that very, very likely to be significant changes in the dividend, and very, very likely that there'll be a major buyback of the shares program. I mean, this company's going to have a lot of cash flow here with having used shares to buy Detour. Of course, you get all the cash flow, and you didn't pick up any debt in the process because you issued shares. So that money is available for whether it's dividends or buybacks or investment in exploration or investment in some other company, but they'll have a lot of cash flow. There was a report written just today, actually, recommending that, okay, we've gone low enough. The technical indicators suggest it should turn around here. We're going to have a good earnings report. I think it's coming out on, I think the 19th of February. I'm not 100% certain of that. But it should be a pretty good number and might be the item that turns it around for Kirkland here.
Yeah, and I still think big picture, I mean, I don't think they're going out of business. So
Nope.
something that might, I don't know, buy the dip, I suppose, is what I keep telling myself at least. All right, my friend, we're about ready to wrap up. Anything else on your mind before we go?
No, my mind is now empty.
All right. Fair enough. And hey, what should be on everyone's mind, there's a segue for you. It's tax season now that we are into February. And just one more reminder, we've got just a few spots left for the upcoming Sprott Registered Investments Lunch and Learn coming up on the 18th of February in Toronto. The Sprott team is partnering with Questrade to share with you how you can add precious metals to your registered investments. Plus, we can also talk about current opportunities in gold, silver, everything else. Book your spot by emailing us at submissions@sprottmoney.com. Or, of course, there's that number again. Just give us a call, 888-861-0775. Eric, go get yourself some elderberries if you don't have them already. And we'll talk again next week.
I have all of those things except elderberries.
Oh.
I'm loaded up with vitamin C. I'm loaded up with vitamin D3, and I suggest everyone else do the same and get some elderberry, except I couldn't find it.
You know, like the little the gummies that like your grandkids eat, you know? That's what they taste like. I'd eat a handful.
I have those. I have them here somewhere.
Oh, they're
In fact,
delicious.
I can tell you that right now I'm speaking through my mask. Okay, man. You have a good weekend.
Thanks for your time, Eric. And from all of us at Sprott Money News and SprottMoney.com, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again next Friday.